Morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started today. And as you guys see our conference evaluation survey, we want to make sure to make a little plug for that to ask you guys to fill out the conference survey, which you can find on the conference website under its own individual tab. So I'm super excited to welcome all of you with us for our first workshop today after our plenary session this morning. And we are excited to share about a new resource that was developed here in West Virginia and is available to programs to utilize to support social emotional learning. So we have with us today Emily Pratt and Sophia Polk. Emily Schoen Pratt is the Director of the Federal Programs and Communications for the Education Alliance. Emily joined the Education Alliance in July 2010 as a dropout prevention and career readiness program director. In her current role, Emily administers AmeriCorps Mentors, blended learning, Energizing STEM, and STEM Works VISTA programs. She also promotes the organization's mission to provide mentoring programs and advocate for policy changes that will improve student achievement in West Virginia. We also have with us today Sophia Polk. Sophia is a secondary education major at Liberty University Online. She's an AmeriCorps member serving 4 terms. Since the last term ended, she's accepted the position of a site coordinator in Kanawha County for an after-school program called Step by Step. She has used the toolkit that we're going to be talking about today thoroughly through her AmeriCorps experience and helped to implement it with her after-school programs. And she's excited to be with us also today to share about the toolkit. So Emily and Sophia, I'm going to pass it off to you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Susan, and welcome everyone. As we get started, please go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. And please share with us your name, organization, and the grade level that you serve. So as we get started, just to give you an opening background, we're going to talk about the social emotional learning toolkit that's designed to enrich your after-school programming and support students' mental health. As Susan said, my name is Emily Pratt, and I'm from the Education Alliance, which is a statewide nonprofit organization that supports public schools and advocates for legislative changes for students. I'm excited that Sophia Polk from Step by Step is joining me today to give you a great example of how these tools can be used for your students in an after-school setting. To kick off this session, we would like to hear from you. Please visit the link in the chat and send us 3 struggles that your students have faced during COVID. So I just sent you the link. Consistency, I definitely agree with that. That's been very challenging. And isolation, insecurity, internet issues, I think that's been a big one as well. Lack of social opportunities and engagement. Thank you for sharing the challenges your students faced during the recent pandemic. These challenges have led to substantial increases in stress and anxiety for students. There's little doubt that these struggles lead to poor academic achievement by students and decreased graduation rates. Addressing social emotional learning is a foundation to improving academic learning. Through funding from the Palatine Foundation of Huntington, the Education Alliance developed the Social and Emotional Learning Toolkit to help mentors integrate mental health best practices and strategies into their ongoing student support. The toolkit is designed for after-school providers, faith-based organizations, coaches, local nonprofit agencies, and anyone else who works with youth. You can download a copy of the toolkit using the link in the chat or by visiting educationalliance.org/SEL. Sorry, let me send you that link really quick. So you may want to open the copy so that you can look at it as we talk today. The Social Emotional Learning Toolkit is a product of many hours of research, collaboration, and dialogue with counseling experts. The strategies provided were collected by Dr. Christine Schimmel and Amanda Ingram from West Virginia University. The Education Alliance also partnered with a steering committee who provided valuable feedback and support. And we're very thankful that Susan was on our steering committee. This toolkit provides 4 grade level sections that feature strategies for individuals in various settings to support student mental health. Each grade level section has 3 to 5 age-appropriate strategies that support social emotional learning. Each grade level section includes research for mentors to consider, as well as activities to implement with students. Activities include background knowledge to learn, best practices to consider, and strategies to implement with students. To learn more about each of these activities, visit educationalliance.org/SEL to download the free how-to training videos. So let's dive into best practices and activities that support student mental health. As I go over the activities, please share in the chat if you have any best practices to add or an experience using one of the activities that we're going to discuss. Let's start by our discussion by talking about the little bitties, or the little ones. Little ones feel the effects of trauma even when we think they may not. They're noticing, hearing, and observing what's going on around them, which often leads to stress and anxiety. It is often hard to witness little ones being stressed, and you might want to fix the situation. However, it's important to understand this is a normal behavior and that you can help the child work through the experiences in their own time, own way, and own pace. As an adult, it's important to honor how the child works through their trauma. Young children learn through play. It's important to provide them with time and a safe space for play. You should also provide toys or other material that allows them to express creativity and expression. There are very few children who do not like to express themselves through art and drawing. A child may not want to talk to you about what's going on at home, but they are often willing to draw about the situation. For this process to be successful, it's important that the child have access to art materials and choices on what they use. If you have only one thing on hand to help young children deal with mental health struggles, I encourage you to have a variety of art supplies and a lot of blank paper on hand. To use this technique, you can ask the child to draw something specific, like a person, their family, or where they live. This process can be very, very therapeutic for the child and tell them a lot about how they view the world. It is important to use generic prompts. For example, if you said draw your house, it might not be relative for the child because they might live in an apartment, 2 different places, a weekly motel, or even their car. It's better to use more generic prompts like draw where you live that allows the child to express their situation. While the child is drawing, refrain from answering any questions and instead use reflective statements such as, you can draw in any way you like. That do not cause the child to alter what they're drawing. When you're done, make sure to ask the child if they'd like to talk about what they drew. This will help the child have an honest conversation about their situation. Sophie, can you please share with us how you've used art and drawing with your students?
Yes, so I work in an after-school program at Piedmont Elementary in Kanawha County, and prior to that, I worked as an Education Alliance mentor. So over 2/3 of the kids that I mentored are now a part of my after-school program. So I do have some background knowledge, but a lot of them face a lot of challenges in their lives. And so my smaller and younger kids love to draw. They come into after school asking to draw. It's the first thing they want to do. And something that mine really enjoy doing are making storybooks. And a lot of the times, to me, it does not make any sense. They're just drawing nonsense, but they're able to draw pages and pages of this is my mom and this is my dog and this is what we did last week. And it helps them process all of their thoughts and all of the information, and then I staple them together, and we have a time where we share it with the parents, and it's just a time of reflection for the kids, and it allows them to be creative and to be free and to tell the story that is on their heart. And I think this is super effective and can even be transitioned to older grades depending on the context.
Thanks, Sophie. That's a great example. Let's now move on to grades 3 through 5. Now that we're moving to a little older child, I'm sure some of you are excited that we're getting to children that you can actually speak to or communicate with. It's important to remember that children in this age group's brains are still developing, and they do not have a rounded vocabulary yet. They're still developing. They're still developmentally young, and their brain is still developing. Remember that the transition from 4th to 5th grade is one of the hardest transitions in public school. Even though you think the child's struggle might be small, it's big for them. When you add the struggles from COVID and returning to the classroom after being out for so long, it's understandable why these children feel stressed. Some best practices when working with students in grades 3 through 5 are to approach the child with an open mind, never judge their mental health struggle, and approach the situation with an empathetic ear and just listen. The positive self-talk shield helps students learn to pay more attention to their self-talk. By becoming more aware of their self-talk, it can increase their self-confidence, motivation, enhance their performance, and overall well-being. This shield provides protection from negative comments, name calling, and put downs. This shield can be a very effective manner with children who are experiencing problems with their parents, peers, or bullying. Evidence has shown that the conversation we have in our heads can have a big impact on our emotions, our view of ourselves, and our actions. By using more positive self-talk, students are more likely to build confidence and self-esteem, feel more in control of their life events, and achieve their goals. To complete this activity, ask the child to draw a shield and write down statements to protect themselves against negative thoughts. Then the child should decorate the shield and display it somewhere that's visible. Sophie, can you share with us how you've used this positive self-talk shield?
Yes, so 3rd through 5th graders are in this awkward space where they're expected to act like big kids, but they are still fighting impulse control and all of these big feelings that have carried on from kindergarten through 2nd grade. And so these positive self-talk shields are helpful in making good decisions and seeing their worth and their ability to do good things, because that's often crowded by all the extra emotions and chaos, especially coming from COVID. So we used this in my program last year, and we split our kids up by grades. So the kindergarten through 2nd is a group, and then the 3rd through 5th grade is a group. And we had them decorate their own shields. They made them any shape they wanted. The only requirements were to split them up into sections and to write the instructions they had been given. And it was such a beautiful moment to see them be able to display all of their thoughts and how they truly feel, and to walk in to our program every day and get to look at their shields and understand the things that are good and the things that they are capable of.
Thanks, Sophie. And I love in this one example how it says that I'm very beautiful. What a great thing for the child to see in their shield every day.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move on to grades 6 through 8. The time from age 11 to 14 is often referred to as early adolescence. This is the time when most children are in middle school. During adolescence, children span a wide range of development, from immature kids who still function as elementary students to more mature children who like to process things a little bit deeper. This time is often a very difficult one for even the most well-adjusted young person. In addition to mental health challenges, it only magnifies what's going on currently. It is during middle school years when adolescents begin to search for their individual identity and begin to push back against parents. They also feel a greater sense of loyalty to their peers, all at the same time when they're having issues with self-esteem that declines as they experience a variety of physical and psychological changes. A few things I'd like to point out about middle school children are that this is a time when they are in a lot of cognitive changes going on in their brains. There is no map that tells us where they should be cognitively at this time, so it's often hard to predict how they're going to think or function. It's also important to note that since they are adolescents, span such a wide variety of ranges of cognitive levels, these activities might work great with one child when another activity might, or the same activity might not work with another child. You also should be aware that adolescents value peer acceptance in relationships over relationships with adults. You can expect early adolescents to test you and to try to cause a shock value. Early adolescents often experience anxiety and stress over events they do not have control over, but at the same time, they lack the awareness of the things in their lives they can control. The circle of control activity helps students with anxiety, self-control, anger, and accepting personal responsibility. This activity helps students visualize what they can and can't control in their environment. By learning to focus on what they can control, students can cope with their emotions of anxiety, anger, and stress. This is a great activity to use with a group of adolescents that will encourage discussion among their peers. To complete this activity, you should provide students with the circles of control worksheet and have them write down things that they can and can't control. During the exercise, help students identify additional things to add to their list and discuss what they can control and how this will help them. Encourage the student to think deeper by considering things like what they do in their personal life, with their friends, and other things. And you should encourage the student to keep the worksheet somewhere that they can see often as a reminder. Sophie, how have you used this activity with your students?
Yes, so I think this is so important for this age group because gaining an awareness of how we exert our energy is one of the first steps in becoming a decision dealing with. And so understanding your context is obviously important. In my particular context, it was most beneficial to do one of those big notes that you hang up, and as a group, just where we drew the circle and everybody raised their hands and said what they could control and what they can't control, and it just sparks conversation about things that maybe their peers hadn't thought about, or other things like that.
Thanks, Sophie.
And then we hung the post-it up and they were able to see it and work through that every day.
Awesome. Thanks, Sophie. That's a great different way to use that activity. I like it. So now to discuss our last group of students who are in grades 9 through 12. Adults who work with high school students often assume that the adolescent's development maturity matches physical maturity. Many adolescents appear grown up and mature because they're physically developed. Make no mistake, adolescents, even those who are physically well developed, are not many mature adults. They often lack the same language, emotional expression, mentalization, rationalizing, and cognitive framework that an adult might use to work through their mental health challenges. Try to not force this group into activities they're not interested in, and do your best to view things from their perspective or get them. For example, if they are really into video games, try to tap into their world through that, but do not force them into video games if that's not something they're interested in. Ask investigative questions and honor their strengths. Help adolescents learn how to cope with things using their strengths. Self-care encourages individuals to maintain a healthy relationship with themselves to help produce positive feelings and boost their self-esteem and self-confidence. It's important to take time to think about things they enjoy mentally, physically, and emotionally. Through the self-care plan activity, you can encourage students to develop a plan for how they're going to take care of themselves. Using the self-care plan worksheet, you can encourage the students to come up with things that they like to do and things that might make them feel better. Help the students think deeper and encourage them to think about what they'd like to do in their free time and with their friends. I suggest that you have the students pick 2 of their favorite activities to focus on until you see them the next time. Sophie, how have you used this with your students?
So we have a few sites that are this age group, and it is hard to engage 9th through 12th graders, especially with the generation that we currently have. And so each site looks a little bit different. At one of our sites, we do like feelings journals that every day they have to fill out, and it hits all of the points of this self-care plan worksheet, and just allows them to work through those emotions immediately when they get to programming, to prevent the buildup of emotions. And then at another site, those kids function a little bit differently. So actually filling out the worksheet and having group discussions about what works best for each individual's is more effective at that site.
Awesome. Thank you, Sophie, for sharing. I think you've had a lot of great examples, and I love hearing how you use these things with your kids. So as I said earlier, we have a workbook with 3 to 5 activities for each group of kids. And I know that you really have some great examples that you can share with your friend or your peers. And so we're going to put you into breakout rooms to be able to discuss those and to learn from each other. You're going to have 15 minutes to share best practices and activities that have worked well for you. You're going to have the opportunity to pick a breakout room with the grade level of kids that you want to talk about. And then you should discuss as a group, is there another activity in the workbook that really, resonates with you? I'll put the link in the chat again so you can open it and look through it. And then also, are there other activities that aren't mentioned that maybe are good for you, or a best practice that you think is really important when working with these kids? And so if you'll please put them in the breakout rooms now, I'd appreciate it. And you get to pick which room you want to go into. If you haven't joined a room yet, I encourage you to select one of the grade levels to join and have a good discussion. And I also encourage you to consider going to the high school room. There's just a few people in that one.
Hi, I don't know how to join.
Sure.
I don't
Let me see,
see where to-
Kate. Let me see if I can. Okay, which room do you want to go to?
I would like to go to grades 9 through 12.
Okay, I'll send you there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else who needs to be sent, just let me know.
Emily, can you send me to grades 3 through 5, please?
Sure.
Can you send me to pre-K, K through second, please?
Sure. 1 second. There you are. So sorry, I just saw all of these in the chat. I'm gonna work on moving you guys. Give me just 1 second. Did I miss anyone who asked to be moved somewhere?
Hey, Emily. Sorry, I was switching in and out of rooms there for just a second. Would you mind? I think we had a couple people, first of all, in the chat say they wanted to go. I just want to make sure they got to the right rooms.
We moved everyone that
Okay.
we saw. I think one new one just came and I'm moving them.
Perfect. And would you mind to just in the chat, just in a quick sentence or two, write the description too of what you're having them discuss? I think that might be helpful for everybody.
Oh, in the chat, sure.
In case like the internet issue, that way they could just
Yeah.
catch right back up. And then I'll try to jump back into the room I was in. Let's see. Thanks, Emily.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Katie will probably have like a.
I still do have.
I think we may have had a few more people just join. And the participants are currently in a breakout room, having a discussion about grade level specific information. And if you need to be sent to a breakout room, just let me know.
Hey, Emily, I kind of jumped around just a little bit with the breakout rooms. I know some people are having some issues that they don't have cameras and they don't have mics. So just a heads up on that as we kind of work to pull everybody back together with, I don't know that all the groups will have like a report out. So just to think about that, yeah, as we try to facilitate conversations.
Okay, will do. Thanks for letting me know.
Sure.
I guess we could go ahead and end them if people are having those issues.
I don't know, some of them were talking, but then others weren't. And I kind of checked in and I got some of the, like my mic's not working thing. So
Gotcha.
Yeah, but probably maybe a little bit earlier than expected, I think would be okay.
Okay, well, we only have 1 minute left. So if you want to go ahead and end the breakout room, you could do that.
I think that's up to you, whatever.
Well, I meant like the tech person could.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Sorry. Welcome back, everyone. I heard that some of you were able to have a really great discussion, and then some others were having a little bit of technical difficulties. So we are going to let those of you who could discuss report out, and then everyone else, please feel free to chime in if you have a suggestion, an activity, or a best practice that you use for that grade level. Please, let's just use this as a free discussion so that we can learn from each other. So let's start by talking about kids in grades pre-K through 2. Does that team have someone who could share first, and then we can have others add some additional comments? Would somebody from, go ahead.
I'll go. Okay. Not very many of us shared, but we just talked about making sure that it's child driven, about not trying to do things just because it's routine. For example, you know, doing apples is the one I use, the example I use, doing apples just because it's September. You know, making sure that you're listening to the kids to find out their interests, and observing to see what difficulties they are having, so you know what kind of activities to use to help them further the skills they need to overcome those difficulties.
I think that's a great point, and I think it's something applicable to all levels of kids. You know, really listening to the child and using that to guide what your technique is. That's a great point. Does anybody else have any other suggestions for grades pre-K through 2 or an activity? So it looks like Sarah Stewart put something in the chat, and she said keeping the children involved by doing activities the children are interested in. I agree. Anybody else?
I have something.
Go ahead.
So a Mardell's opened in our town, and so I went to it, and they have this book. It's by Key Education, and it's essential tips and tools for social skills. And one of the really cool things that they have in there, they have these positive affirmation cards, and it has different affirmations like I feel confident when I talk to most people. I can show that I'm happy by smiling. I'm a good role model for other kids. Just different affirmations like that, that they, you know, that you can sit down and read with children when they need that positive affirmation. And they have a lot of like different toolkits in there. And I thought it was a really cool resource that I thought I'd share.
That's an awesome resource. And did you say what the name, like where it was from?
Yeah, so I got it at Mardell's, and it's by Key Education.
Key Education. That's an awesome option. I also saw that Colony Miller put in the chat that she likes to let children lead their activities, and I think that's a really great strategy. Anybody else on pre-K to 2? Can we move on? Okay, let's move on to grades 3 through 5. Would somebody from that group be willing to share first? Okay, what about somebody who just has a suggestion for kids in 3 through 5?
So we spoke about how this age group is hard to kind of get through to because they have a lot of negative self-talk, and it's easier to kind of buddy them up with kids younger, but when you put them together, they're kind of like bullying or comparing each other. And so we all kind of had the same interactions in regards to that. We did like the idea of the self-talk shield, and finding other ways to kind of boost their confidence and try to get them away from the bullying, and how they all are in the same boat together and they're not out to get each other. That's kind of what we all want to find something that can help us with, but that's where we left off more or less.
That's a great point. Anybody have any strategies? Sarah said being a great listening ear, and I agree. that's a good thing for that age group. Anyone else? Okay, let's move to grades 6 through 8. What did your group discuss? Okay, well, does anybody else have a suggestion for middle school students? So Leanne Watson said, that you guys had technical difficulties, okay. And then someone else said, talking to the kids at their level and not talking at them, but talking to them at their level. Good point. Anyone else? Well, I'm sorry you guys had technical issues. It makes it much more fun when you get to really talk and interact. Well, moving to our last grade level, 9 through 12, so high schoolers, what kind of best practices did you guys come up with? Sharon said, talking to them individually, never embarrassing them goes a long way at that age group, and I agree. Anything else? And Sarah Stewart said that building relationships is important, and I agree. I think with high schoolers, it's really important to have that relationship, and if you don't, then they don't do a great job of interacting. Anybody have any last comments? Well, I'm sorry that some of you guys had some technical difficulties, but I do really appreciate your feedback and your thoughts and the things that you shared. Thank you for joining us today. On January 26th, the Education Alliance will be partnering with Dr. Christine Schimmel to provide a workshop called Mentoring or Creative Mentoring Strategies that shares how to use a growth mindset and protective factors to help children develop resilience. Participants will receive a printed copy of the Social Emotional Learning Toolkit and learn how to use these activities with their students. To download a free copy of the Social Emotional Learning Toolkit, watch the how-to videos, or register for the Creative Mentoring Strategies workshop, visit educationalliance.org/SEL. I also put it in our chat. There looks to be a few more things that were put in the chat and that I wanted to share. So someone said that there are so many kids who are disrespectful, so the child feels disrespected, and so you need to make them feel respected. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate your time, and also thank you to my co-host Sophia, who joined us last minute. She was asked to do this yesterday, and I think she did a wonderful job sharing about her experience. I hope you guys like these activities and there's something that are helpful. And then if you want to learn more, come in January. And Dr. Chris Schimmel is really an expert in this field and can give you great suggestions and strategies.
Yeah, thank you so much, Emily and Sophia. And I think this today was just a really great introduction to this valuable toolkit to utilize with programs. I love the toolkit because I think it's so straightforward and easy to apply, but it has some great information compiled with, all within, and also the different resources provided. So as Emily mentioned, I definitely would encourage everyone. We will share out the information also on the January training, and I'm sure you'll see that coming from the Education Alliance as well. If you don't, I would really encourage you to follow the West Virginia Statewide After School Network, as well as the Education Alliance on social media. That's a great way also, if you're not getting our newsletters, which we would love to sign you up for, just let us know. But that's a great way to find out about trainings and other information that's coming out from our organizations. But thank you for your time today and providing this introduction to the toolkit. Thank you everybody for joining us. And I hope that everybody will stick around for one last workshop that we have next for the conference before we end out today. Thank you so much. Everybody have a great day.